SoundHopping podcast, episode 1. I'm just going to jump straight into it. I don't really want to do any formal introductions or anything apart from I'm Ben Conway and I'm just starting this podcast. It's about things that interest me to do with music, basically. I'm also going to be doing the main series off of this podcast called Sound Hops, where I visit different music venues, sort of review them, just see what they're like, go and see some live music, hopefully discover some up-and-coming bands, something like that. So look out for those, they'll be coming in the future. I've got a few little trips planned, so let's just get straight into this. This first section I like to call what I'm listening to. At the minute I've been reading Mojo magazine for this month, and this month's edition of Mojo magazine has been edited by the immortal, the old and gnarled Rolling Stones guitarist, the supposed inspiration behind Johnny Depp's character in Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Jack Sparrow, the one and only Keith Richards. Now, in this particular issue, there are many sort of interviews and articles about Keith Richards himself and the many collaborators he's had over his extensive career. One that stands out in this magazine, particularly in an interview with her, is Norah Jones, the R&B, jazz, blues, just about any genre at all. The singer. She's mainly known for her debut album, "Come Away with Me," that was released in 2002. So I started off this week by listening to that album. It's brilliant. I'd recommend it for some sort of light Sunday morning listening, maybe. Maybe when you're just getting up, or maybe when you're doing chores or something like that. That may sound really boring, but it's very mellow, smooth music. Um, Very emotional in places, and she's clearly an outstanding singer, and no wonder Keith Richards wanted to collaborate with her so much. Anyway, so in the middle of this magazine, there's a great sort of centerfold series of interviews and articles and just writing by the great John Harris, and it's all about Manchester, sort of the rave, um, early sort of almost electronic scene in Manchester, sort of late 80s, 89, 90, when you're seeing bands like the Stone Roses, the Happy Mondays, up until people like the Charlatans. You've got lots of different DJs coming up at that time as well. Most of this is sort of centralized around the famous Hacienda nightclub, and in the beginning was built largely on the ecstasy trade, which was coming across from Amsterdam at the time. And weirdly, central to this was of course, the boys from the Happy Mondays, especially Sean Ryder. They'd got involved in the ecstasy trade there. They'd been dealing and just distributing it between their friends, and that sort of developed in the Hacienda Club into a real atmosphere, and the music that followed really picks up on that. It's all very dance and hip hop inspired, but it's still got that Manchester, that gritty guitar music feel to it as well. If there's a sound which really captures that moment in history, I feel it's the track WFL from the album Bummed by Happy Mondays. Um, and it captures the feeling. What I think makes most albums great is that they capture a feeling or atmosphere at the time. So listening to a song like WFL or Step On from Pills and Thrills and Belly Aches, the Happy Mondays later album, it really brings you to the heat and the sweat at the Hacienda. You can imagine all the kids in there losing their minds on ecstasy and dancing with these hip hop inspired drum beats, samples, and swaggering Shawn Ryder vocals. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Happy Mondays tracks again, and that's all thanks to this wonderful piece of writing by John Harris in Mojo magazine. It really captures what was going on at the time and has some great interviews with Shawn Ryder. I'd implore you to find that article, but it's brilliant. If I could suggest a few Happy Monday songs to listen to, ones which have been in my head since I've been listening to it recently, I'd probably say WFL and Step On. Now, in this particular magazine, which is what my listening recently has been sort of based on, Comes with a CD with 15 songs. Sadly, I don't have a CD player with me, but I've managed to track the songs down. And if there's one song I can recommend for anyone to listen to at the minute, regardless of your music taste, is a song from the band Funkadelic. It's called Lunch Meatophobia. That's Lunch Meat A Phobia. It's absolutely stunning. Um, in brackets, actually, there's brackets after the name. It's Lunch Meatophobia. Think it ain't illegal yet, and it's from their 1978 album, actually, One Nation Under a Groove. What a tune it is. It's nearly impossible to believe that it came out in 78. It starts with this humming electric guitar feedback and blends perfectly funk music and rock music. It's got a sort of ascending riff that reminds me of Black Sabbath somehow. And that might sound hard to believe, but it really does have that ascending 70s rock aesthetic with that funky bass part and ad-libbed vocals, which are so typical of funk music at the time. It's absolutely brilliant. On the album, it comes a few songs after a song called "Who Says a Funk Band Can't Play Rock," and there's absolutely fitting because it is a rock and funk fusion. It's a fireball of freak out goodness. Now, if this won't get you to listen to some funk, I don't know what will. I'm not a funk man personally, but this song absolutely slaps, and I won't hear otherwise. Plus, it comes with a personal recommendation from Keith Richards, no less. So, really give it a listen. Like I say, I'm not into funk at all, but this song is truly deserving of a good listen this week. Now, my track of the week this week is from a band I've known about for quite a while now. I've had the absolute pleasure of seeing them live, and that was a couple of years ago now in Southampton. And this is a band called Swimmers. That's SWMRS. Swimmers. They're a Californian punk-ish band. I say punk. The first album is a lot more punk than this new one, but it really is deserving of my track of the week. The song I've selected. They're from Oakland, California, and they've had some albums and EPs produced by various popular and famous artists. Anyway, the drummer in Swimmers, his father is Billy Joe Armstrong, the frontman of Green Day, and he's produced one of their EPs, as well as the vocalist for Fiddler, Zach Harper. He's also produced one of their EPs, I believe. So it is great grounding for a band. Their breakthrough album, Drive North, is genuinely one of my favourite albums of the last few years. It's really got that Californian accent to the lead singer, that's shared between the two brothers, Cole and Max Becker, and so it's almost surfer-like quality. But at their core, they are a very good punk band. They've got songs against the built-up areas of California, like LA, and of course, they've got cutting political lyricism throughout their songs. They're currently signed to Fueled by Ramen, and they've just released a new album, Berkeley's on Fire, and that was just last week. This album really shows that Swimmers have developed a lot. Their production on this album seems 10 times, if not 100 times, tighter than than Drive North, and the instrumentation is more fully fledged, I'd say. Some would say it's less punk, and I'd have to agree. It doesn't have that same cutting attitude as the as Drive North, but it's still very, very, very enjoyable. So my track of the week, I've listened to this album quite a lot now, and I'm gonna pick Lose Lose Lose. Yeah, it's probably one of the more punk songs from the album, but it does start off with this drum machine, so it's got a bit of a more modern twist, almost a more popular piece. And so it starts off with this drum machine style backing. It's got a bouncy, really tight guitar riff and echoey backing vocals, which sort of introduce your ears to the evolution of their Californian punk style. Of course, it's got the classic Swimmers vocals from Cole and Max Becker. They've got absolute potty mouths on this record. It's absolutely fantastic. They are swearing their way through through the song especially, which does give it that punk vibe. It's brilliant. And of course, the chorus is really, really catchy. Most of the time, it's quite fast and upbeat, and it really keeps the song driving forward. The album as a whole doesn't seem to have the same conciseness, and like I said earlier, it doesn't have that harsh, more punk aesthetic of the previous album, Drive North, which I recommend you listening to immensely. It is, in my opinion, how you should do a punk album in the modern age. It makes for definitely makes for one of the best live experiences I've ever had, and especially in such a small venue. I saw them at the Joiners in Southampton. It's one of the sweatiest, but one of the best nights. Certainly one of the best gigs I've ever been to. Brilliant, upbeat, catchy choruses, but it was very cutting. It was very energy filled. It was very passionate, and you believe every word they sing, especially live. They were great, especially as a band, very cohesive. It was brilliant. So I do recommend you listening to Drive North to get the feel. If you want to get the feel of the live band, definitely listen to that album, Drive North. But again, saying that, Lose 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 is an outstanding track from an equally decent album, and it's definitely deserving of my track of the week. So go listen to that. That's Lose 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 by Swimmers from their new album, Berkeley's on Fire. All right, here's our next section, rolling back the years. This is where I take a quick look at what happened this week or today throughout history in the musical and entertainment world. Just some things to pick up on, and I like to just talk about that, especially when lots of my music taste is from the past. This week, 1975, one of my favourite albums of all time, Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, was released. It's probably best known for its tracks Kashmir and Houses of the Holy. It's a great album. Certainly not one of their most critically or publicly revered albums, but it's still brilliant. It is Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, especially at their best. See what else we got in history. Brilliant. This week, 1984, the Smiths released their self-titled album, The Smiths. Now, I find lots of people seem to get hung up on the album from the Smiths, The Queen is Dead, but this album is probably my favourite Smiths album, their self-titled one. It's got songs like Still Ill, Reel Around the Fountain, and What Difference Does It Make on it. It's absolutely brilliant album. And the most underappreciated song, and I'd say, is probably You've Got Everything Now. It's definitely a classic. Morrissey's lyrics are, as per usual, absolutely stimulating. Johnny Marr's riffs set the tone perfectly for each song. They seem to chime away in the background more, sort of setting back and letting Morrissey's vocals take charge in most of the songs on this album. On the entertainment side of things, the only thing that catches my eye really is 2009. Today, Heath Ledger won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, posthumously, of course, after his death for The Dark Knight, playing the Joker and that. And of course, very sad, but what a performance it was. And seeing as we're a music podcast, we can't talk about The Dark Knight or any Christopher Nolan film really without touching on Hans Zimmer, who did the excellent soundtrack for that film, which well, most of Hans Zimmer's soundtracks and films are masterclasses in sort of cinematic composition, as always. So it's great if you ever go back and watch that film, which I'm sure many of you do. Just take a while to appreciate the music, and that is absolutely brilliant. All right, we're going to take a little look into the future now, and not that I can predict the future, but I'm just going to take a look at the news and see what's coming up in the world of music. Actually, one thing which I've taken particular interest in. I've been looking at this supposedly, a new album coming from The Who of all people. Um, so it's possibly going to be released this summer, and it potentially could simply be called Who. That's its working title for now, and it's 13 whole years after their last LP was released. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Obviously, Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey are getting on a bit now, unless they really push the boat out. I can't see this album being critically acclaimed or bringing any sort of newer fans who didn't already like the Who. But I'll definitely be interested to see what comes out of this. So if it's releasing this summer, you might get to hear some of those tracks when they play Wembley Stadium in early July. They're playing that on the 6th of July, I believe, with support from Kaiser Chiefs, which is great. I've seen them live, absolutely brilliant. Um, I'm not seeing the Who live. I wish I could, but it'll be very interesting to see what that new album turns out like. And also supporting on that gig actually is Pearl Jam's frontman Eddie Vedder. Now, perhaps a bit selfishly, I'm going to talk about an up-and-coming band who have recently started making waves, especially on the south coast. I think they're from around somewhere near Portsmouth, and I've seen them a couple times in Southampton, and they've got a few singles which they released on Spotify and SoundCloud, YouTube. You can find them. They're a band called Sad Palace. Now, personally, my favourite track they've released so far is called Frostbeat. It's absolutely brilliant. It's sort of atmospheric, electronic, indie rock. It's hard to describe them. It's a bit psychedelic in places, and especially in Frostbeat, there's a great sort of guitar solo riff break in the middle of it. It's absolutely fantastic, and they look like a really promising band. And then finally today, they released a new single, which again is on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, I think, and it's called "Your Beauty Hurts." Very poetic, and announced that they've got an EP coming up, so which "Your Beauty Hurts" is taken from. And praise the Lord, because these boys have been absolutely grinding, and the new single has that same unique atmospheric indie pop um, with sort of guitar rock elements that is the sound that their fans love. It's a really promising time for the band, I think, and the almost psychedelic artwork alone for the new EP is and the new single is getting me really excited for what's to come. So do listen to that now. That's Your Beauty Hurts by Sad Palace, and anything by Sad Palace. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, especially Frostbeat, which is one of my favourites. Right, I'm going to talk a bit about the Brit Awards now, because I couldn't rightfully cover this week without talking about them, sadly. And well, sorry, the Mastercard Brit Awards, eh? You know, what little clips I did see of it, they kept saying Mastercard, the Mastercard Brit. Yeah, okay. There's no way you would leave that event not knowing the sponsor. Like, no matter how many free drinks you were given, supposedly bought by Mastercard, you couldn't get away from it. It just pained me to see some of the YouTube clips and see Jack Whitehall coming across. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. Do most people like Jack Whitehall? Oh, it just seems like he's trying to impress all the sort of pissed up pop stars there. It's probably quite an unpopular opinion. Doesn't really matter to me. The Brit Awards seems to have lost a bit of its edge. It just seems to have lost a bit of character. You know, there's certainly no Liam Gallagher's messing around on stage with the trophies. It's probably more to do with how the industry's changed now. But uh, you know, I certainly, for one, didn't watch it live. It definitely would be just a waste of 3 or however long, how many hours it was. But I'm gonna look through now and just go down the list of the awards, the winners and nominees. And I do have to say that there were a few who were deserving and who I do think are genuinely talented, um, and who I you know I do enjoy listening to. So I can't slate it off too much. However, um, so the Brit Award for British Male went to George Ezra. Yeah, not always my cup of tea, George Ezra, but he has released some undeniably great tunes over the years, and especially this year. He seems to be growing even more in popularity. Definitely gone into the mainstream. Great sort of country pop singer now. Absolutely brilliant. He beat Sam Smith to that, and Craig David. I mean, if he's up against Sam Smith and Craig David, I haven't really heard much from them this year, so didn't have too much competition. Maybe from gigs, but George Ezra, yeah, he was the likely and the deserving winner of that, I feel. British female, of course. Georgia Smith. Again, I don't actually know much about Georgia Smith, I have to be honest. But who did she beat? She beat Lily Allen. I mean, she had a sort of comeback this year. Jess Glynn, yeah, talented, but the person who I'd like to have seen win that, definitely Florence and the Machine. Florence Welch is an absolutely amazing singer, and all the stuff she put out this year was brilliant in my book. So I would have liked to see her win it, but again, I don't really know much about Georgia Smith, so she could be the deserving winner there. Now, British single. I'm I when I look down the list of all the nominees here, I'm not sure if I could recognise any of the singles up for grabs here. Apparently, Calvin Harris and Dua Lipa. one with their song One Kiss. Now I know that's played in nightclubs a lot, um, but apart from that, I'm looking at the list now. I couldn't tell you what any of these songs sound like, apart from George Ezra's Shotgun, and that's because it had a ridiculous amount of airplay. Tom Walker, actually, um, I recognise his name and his song, Leave a Light On. But apart from that, it's surprising. Singles don't seem to be as big a deal anymore. It's more about getting your album up into that first charts. It was a bit of a shame, really. Um, Probably something to do with the fact you don't really buy individual singles anymore. Um, no one's buying singles on vinyl because you can't. Everyone's just streaming music. But then again, um, what are you gonna do? Calvin Harris and Dua Lipa, um, One Kiss. Yeah, this is a good song. Now, British breakthrough act went to Tom Walker. Now, as I said earlier, I only know a little bit about him. I'm not particularly big fan. He's got that almost stereotypical indie male singer voice. It's very sort of in the back of the throat, and he's clearly very talented. I know he's a multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, so I should probably listen to him more before making any further judgment. Um, the other name which sort of stood out to me in that group is definitely Idols, a brilliant British punk and guitar rock band. Potentially the only, yeah, I think the only punk band up for anything. Idols there. So it would have been good to see them get a breakthrough, but as always next year, they're still gaining momentum. I know they're definitely on the festival and sort of gig circuit at the minute, so um, there's still time to come for Idols. Now, British group this year, bit interesting. Um, Not a lot to pick from. Little Mix is there because they're there every year. I saw I believe they picked up the award for best British video for their song "Woman Like Me" featuring Nicki Minaj. Again, the importance of music videos now, it's not as much. It's not like everyone's watching MTV. It's all on YouTube, and I'm sure it's got millions and millions of views. Yeah, Little Mix are always winning an award at the Brits, it seems, or at least performing there. So they're a staple. And yeah, they were nominees for British Group this year, but didn't get the didn't get the award this year. That was actually the 1975, who I personally can't really listen to, but I know they've got an absolute army of fans who are relentless, especially on social media on Twitter. Um, they released an album this year which is critically acclaimed, and everyone seems to be loving them at the minute. So maybe I'm just the lone hater out here, but they did beat this year Arctic Monkeys, which I have to agree with. Arctic Monkeys' new album, it's fair to say, split their audience. Um, I've got to be honest, I detest that new Arctic Monkeys album. I don't know. The only people who I've seen who liked it always seem to tell me that I just haven't listened to the lyrics enough, man. I just no, no, not it's not the year for the Arctic Monkeys, I don't think. Um, and surprisingly, Gorillaz, who have been prolific recently, Damon Albarn has been pumping out music. Um, I was surprised the good, the bad, and the Queen didn't get a mention in the British group um, nominees even, because that album is thematically one of the most interesting albums that has come out in recent times. Um, Sort of very old style. All the videos which were made for it have a sort of a ventriloquist dummy performing the songs. It's very I mean, I saw a review which described it. It's got a bit of oompa in it. It's very sort of old-fashioned, almost folk music, and with really, really strange lyrics and comments on society. But it is absolutely brilliant. I'm surprised they don't even get a mention on any of these awards this year. But Gorillaz did get a nomination for Best British Group, and that was, I guess, for their new album, The Now Now, came out last year. Before that, just a year before, they came out with the album Humans, which I also enjoyed. Um, the Now Now especially is I didn't listen to it as much as I did to Humans, but it's got a track on it called Magic City, which I adore. So I definitely advise listening to that. Um, and I'm sure the Gorillaz have got enough nominations and recognition in their time, so it's probably about time that a younger group like the 1975 take this category. The international side of the Brits this year was probably one of the most predictable parts of the event. Of course, best international male went to Drake. Y- you can't blame them. Drake has been probably on top of the industry for a solo male performer for the last, it must be at least 5 years. Every week he's in the top 10. He's probably breaking records. I mean, he has broken a lot of records for holding consistent, consecutive three spaces on the charts. It's unbelievable. He's played consistently in the halls I live in at the minute. You can If you walk down the corridor, you can hear Drake playing. If you go into a nightclub, you can hear Drake playing. It's absolutely amazing the reach that Drake has nowadays, and it's hardly surprising that he's won the International Male award this year. And again, International Female. Cardi B could have given her a run for her money, but Ariana Grande again, very similar to the Drake story for the last few years, especially since Manchester charity event, all of that stuff. She has absolutely exploded in popularity. She's been on top of the game for years, and it's not surprising at all that she's won international female there. Speaking of unsurprising results, in the global success category, who would take it but Mr. Ed Sheeran? Of course, Ed Sheeran has been again dominating probably for the last 5 years at least. Such a talented singer-songwriter, great to see live with all his loop pedal tricks and things like that. Um, and he again, someone who's had countless number ones this year. So many from every album goes at least to the top 10 of the charts. Um, so not surprising there at all. Um, and what I really enjoy seeing from this list here is that the critics' choice, which I guess is one of the ones which matters the most because it's decided by critics, obviously, um, is Sam Fender picking up that. Now, he's someone who's got lots of airplay on Radio X, which I've listened to a lot, and he is clearly a very talented singer-songwriter. Um, he's a Geordie, I believe. From the videos I've seen of him sort of backstage and touring, he seems like an absolutely um, just a decent lad, really, and his music is excellent. I'm hoping to see him live soon. His two sort of singles that broke out this year were called "Play God" and "That Sound." I've heard them on TV adverts. I've heard them on the radio, on YouTube, Instagram adverts a lot. He seems to be growing at an incredible rate, and it's just great indie singing and songwriting. Um, so yeah, good on him. All right, this one's a little bit long this week. I am actually sat in a makeshift booth I've made in my room because I couldn't get into the actual recording booths today. Yeah, I'm sorry that the sound quality is not great, but I'm just going to do the quick recap now, just because it's been quite a long episode. So things to listen to. What I've been listening to this week: Nora Jones' um, debut album, Funkadelics, Lunch Metaphobia, Think It Ain't Illegal Yet, and anything by the Happy Mondays. Can't get enough of it at the minute. As well as the Stone Roses, anything from that Manchester era, um, inspired by that article in Mojo magazine. Of course, keep your eye out for Swimmer's new album, Berkeley's on Fire. Absolutely outstanding California punk. Definitely check that album out, especially as well as their breakthrough album Drive North, which is absolutely stunning, and there's a bit more punk in it. And of course, my track of the week, Lose 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 from their new album. Don't forget to go back, listen to Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin, obviously great album, and again the Smiths, self-titled album, the Smiths. Not to forget, if you need something to watch, The Dark Knight. Come on, rewatch it. Why not? It's a classic, and it's got that amazing Hans Zimmer soundtrack. And things to look out for the future: the new album for The Who, some point in the summer, hopefully. You can buy tickets to see them live in July. And of course, one of my favourites, Sad Palace. Show them some support. YouTube, Spotify, really check them out. Their new single, Your Beauty Hurts, is absolutely amazing. Um, check out my favourite song from them, Frostbeat, as well. And obviously, the Brit Awards, it was as we expected in most cases. Not many surprises at all. So, yeah, this has been the recap. Okay, this is where the podcast would normally end, but I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about the future of the podcast. Um, Basically, I'm splitting into two sort of series. One is called the Sound Hop episodes. That's when I go to a venue and I talk about the venue itself, the gig, like the band I see. I'm going to try and ask a few questions in the audience just to get their reaction to the venue and the band. And hopefully, I'm going to discover some decent smaller bands. So, for example, in the up and coming weeks, I'm seeing the Murlocs, an Australian psychedelic band. That's in towards Camden. I'm going to see D-Mob Happy and a strange cowboy themed singer called Orville Peck, which will be very interesting. I can't wait to report on that. Um, so yeah, that's the Sound Hop episodes, and then the other episodes, which I'm calling the Sound Hopping podcast, will be a bit like this one. Just me talking about what I'm interested in that week. Basically speaking about what I'm listening to, things for the future, and various different things like that. I might do a bit more on films and the entertainment side as well, but mainly focusing on music. We'll see. Hopefully, get some guests on. You never know. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening and wasting a bit of your time with me. To contact the show, you can message me on the channel's Instagram. That's at SoundHopping, or you can email us at soundhopping@gmail.com, and you can message any queries or requests on there at any time. I'll get back to you very quickly. So thank you very much for listening. I've been Ben Conway. This has been the Sound Hopping Podcast, and I'm hopping off the airwaves now. Have a sound week, and I'll see you next time.